My name is Pushpinder Chowdhry and I'm part of the UK Asian Film Festival team, and we are here for our grand opening.
So Ray of Hope is really fitting for this year, especially with the pandemic, and we found that we wanted to really uplift everybody and have a theme of hope this year. It's a celebration of the 100-year anniversary of legendary filmmaker Satyajit Ray.
Good evening and thank you for coming and supporting UK Asian Film Festival's opening today. I'd like to thank BFI for making it possible to have our opening here of this festival. We are celebrating in May centenary birth anniversary of great Indian filmmaker Satyajit Ray. We also are proud to have the theme Ray of Hope, which is so appropriate and timely for the time of COVID. I would like to also thank the sponsors who are Tony Litt and Tony Matharu, who's here in the audience today. And after the film, I would request every one of you to, if you can, give your feedback, and the forms are on our website, UCAF website. I would now like to ask Mukulika to come and maybe give an introduction to the film and to the great filmmaker. But one last thing, I would like you to look out for this brochure, and there are a number of films, 10 days of films. Please do go and watch those films, support us. It'll be great of you to come here today. Thank you very much. Mukulika.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure, and I know that I share with all of you here the huge joy of being back in this space. I think many of us probably have our happiest memories sitting in the space watching some of the world's greatest cinema. It's certainly my most favorite space in London. Thank you to UK Asian Film Festival for curating and putting on this despite the challenges, this fantastic festival, which I hope you will all come and watch these incredible films. And a really warm welcome to you for this opening night for a film that is remarkable. But first we must remember that this film is to inaugurate a festival to remember and commemorate and celebrate this incredible filmmaker, Satyajit Ray, who was born, of course, on 2nd May 1921. So it's its centenary year. And as, again, many of you here probably know, that Ray was a filmmaker that, for instance, Martin Scorsese said, you had Fellini, Kurosawa, Ray, and then you had seen some of the best cinema in the world. Satyajit Ray, of course, from Bengal in India, was not just a filmmaker. He was a writer, he was an artist, he was a composer. He scored many of his films, and his enormous body of work is something that many of us have enjoyed, watched again and again. Some of them are on television at the moment. And for those of you who are here for the first time, engaging with this new cinema, do go and check his films out. We are in Britain. It's worth remembering that Ray was the second film personality after Charlie Chaplin to have been given an honorary doctorate by the University of Oxford. A remarkable Renaissance man, really, who has left a body of work that the BFI here has screened again and again. Some of his masterpieces have been digitally remastered and screened, and really it's a body of work worth engaging in. As the other great filmmaker from Japan, Akira Kurosawa, said, if you haven't watched Ray's films, it's like to exist on Earth without seeing the sun and the moon. So if you haven't seen the sun and the moon, then this is a good time to start. Now, the reason why Pushpinder and her team have chosen this film by Goutam Ghose, Raahgir, to inaugurate this festival is because there is quite an intimate connection between Ghose and Satyajit Ray. Ghose was a young filmmaker in Calcutta, that vibrant cultural city where Ray lived, and Ray was a mentor, as he was to many filmmakers who came after him. And Ghose talks very movingly about the time that he spent with Ray and what he learned from him, including scoring his own music, which obviously took some skill and talent. In marking the centenary this year, Goutam Ghose said he really missed Ray's humanism. Ray's humanism and universality of message while making films set in India is what sets him apart from many other filmmakers of the many thousands and thousands of films that get made in India, some of them remarkable films. Now, Ghose's this film, Raahgir, was made before the pandemic, and as you'll see in the short Q&A that I recorded with him before some days ago, he explains that this is set in Jharkhand in eastern India. And it is a remarkably prescient film because Ghose made this film long before the world, at a time when the world was innocent of this great disaster that was about to befall it. And last year in India, in an effort to control the pandemic, one of the things that the government of India did was to lock down the country, as many countries did, as we did here in Britain. But the country was locked down at 4 hours' notice. And this meant the huge workforce of millions and millions of Indian citizens who traveled to work to the nearest town, to faraway cities in search of work, were stranded. They worked in cities, but their homes were not there. They had their families, their immediate families, maybe some people from their village, but nothing else. They had no savings. They had food for 2 days. They had no way to get back to the villages that they called home. And so India witnessed this remarkable spectacle of thousands and thousands of migrant workers, as they're called, walking home along India's highways. And it made social scientists like me, I'm a social anthropologist, I teach at LSE, and we think about social phenomena like these seriously. And it made us think that the one thing that could define people, Indian citizens like this, at the very bottom of the social hierarchy with nothing to call their own, is this remarkable self-respect, dignity, and self-reliance. There were no trains, there were no buses, there was no way to get home. So these workers just walked. They walked with their possessions, they walked with their children, they walked with trunks on their heads, they cooked by the highways. Some of them died, many of them made it. Now this is the big story of India of 2020. Goutam Ghose's film that you're about to see, Raahgir, was shot before all of this happened. And yet the name Raahgir, people who are travelers, is really about walking and the companionship and the solidarity that is possible on this arduous of journeys that we saw in real time in India in 2020. And this film, ladies and gentlemen, is really about that solidarity that dignity that citizens like the two main protagonists and the man that they meet on their journey encounter and create. So enjoy the film. If you want, there is a Q&A. I think the Q&A will be screened at the end of the film. And enjoy this wonderful moment of being back in such a wonderful space in London. Thank you. Welcome everyone to this conversation with the terrific team behind Raahgir, the film you've just seen. I have the director of the film, Mr. Goutam Ghose here, who of course is a legend in cinema in India and globally. So let me start by asking Goutam da, when did you make this film, and how, when did you film it? How much has been the inspiration behind this film, the events of the pandemic, what happened to migrant workers, the kind of dignity of the two main characters of the film? How much is that story a reflection of very contemporary events?
Well, at the outset, I really congratulate the organizer for this event of physical screening of our film. We are really delighted because we couldn't release the film because of pandemic. And, you know, film was meant for large screen. Film was designed, its, you know, composition, mise-en-scène, everything was designed for large screen. So we are all very delighted to present our film in the 23rd UK Asian Film Festivals, and in my favorite theatre, you know, at BFI, where I've been several times, and it's a wonderful atmosphere, ambience. Well, you know, I think the film is more relevant now in this pandemic time because this coronavirus or whatever pandemic has broken our togetherness, broken our collective being as a human race. That's why, you know, I think it's more relevant now because it's about human values and how you can help others, because our lives are basically right from our childhood. We have seen that we are interdependent. You cannot live alone or in isolation. We are interdependent, and pandemic has broken and also made people extremely inhuman, maybe out of terror, but you know, it's true, very inhuman. So I think, you know, this film, Raahgir, our humble presentation of humanity of common man and how you can help each other, because, you know, these people are little, they remain in unseen India. You don't see them unless there is a kind of a natural disaster or calamity, whatever. You know, then you know, the media jump into those corners. Otherwise, they are unseen. But they're huge in numbers. Silently, they do their work. You know, they earn their daily bread. It's a very hard life, but they care for each other. And I think it's a story of humanity in cinematic time and space. And these two characters, they don't know each other, but gradually they come close to each other. And, you know, it's a camaraderie of these two people. And another man and ailing patients, you know, old people, the man and woman, and sacrificing their own job, how they help others to survive. I'm really, really happy that it is shown in London, and it's a film of my heart. And the film originally, you know, was premiered in Busan, and after that, my producer Amit and others, we tried to release the film, but impossible. In 2020, we were supposed to release the film on big screen all over, but but couldn't do it. So today I'm very happy that, this piece of the slice of humanity we could try to show through my wonderful actors. And many people, even in Busan, people ask me, really, are there actors, or you picked up people from the village? I said they are all established actors, wonderful actors, because what I feel, what is good acting, that is which is credible, and which portrays the character. That's a good acting, And Adil, Tilottaman, Neeraj, all of them were wonderful, and they were so serious and dedicated. We remember those shooting days. It was very tight, very difficult schedule, because we were all sort of going by the weather focused, because I wanted a total grey tone all over the film, and grey, rainy. So it was very difficult shooting, very difficult shooting. We were fighting every day with the weather. So anyway, I'm very happy that film has been shown in London.
Thank you. In fact, globally, this month, the images of Indians helping each other have become absolute global news. Everybody has seen images of India's huge crisis of the second wave, and how, in fact, people are coming out of the second wave, not because of governments, not because of politicians, but because they're helping each other. So in many ways, it is a very timely film, but it's a, like you say, it's a humane film, because it brings out the two main characters, and there are not many characters in the film. So we really focus on these two people walking to the nearest town in search of work, but also this sort of almost mythic appearance of this third character taking this cart of two very frail, nearly dying old people, which again during the pandemic becomes a very powerful image. Amit, can I bring you in briefly here just to say that what made you back the film before the pandemic, given most people would find it quite difficult viewing, whereas I'm delighted for you and the team that now it seems like the film for our times. Are you pleased about that?
My inspiration, was Goutam Da, because I wanted to work with Goutam Da. For many years, we were talking to each other to work together. But, when he narrated this story to me, I really liked the story, and I wanted to do this because it's story of, humanity. It's story of compassion, of sacrifice. I've been, associated with mainstream films. I did a lot of mainstream films like MS Dhoni, Simran, but this kind of subject, which I always had at the back of my mind, that I wanted, to do this kind of subject. And, when it comes from a director with whom you want to work with. So it was, like a dream come true for me. So I immediately made a decision and gave a nod to Goutam Da, and it was a very quick decision. And I remember it was a very short time, and Goutam Da wanted to shoot in monsoon, and there was no preparation. But, a feeling inside, there was a feeling that, no, we can do it. And, motivation of Goutam Da and the hard work and overall the way we tried, things started happening. And in fact, we started the shoot one day prior to the, schedule. So Goutam Da, I told Goutam Da, Goutam Da gave me a schedule. Then I said, okay, Goutam Da will definitely meet the schedule. And it was wonderful that with everyone's effort, we started one day prior to what schedule Goutam Da made. So I'm really happy to produce this film. And this is one of the film which will always be closer to my heart. It's very unfortunate that we are unable to release the film as yet due to pandemic, but I'm sure soon things will become normal, and we will be able to showcase this film worldwide.
Amen to that, inshallah. I really hope that that will happen. Adil, can I ask you first, congratulations on an absolutely stunning performance. That was heartrending. I think everyone loves your character by the end, which is remarkable because he's such a he's almost like a trickster figure who appears out of nowhere and talks about shortcuts and has a solution and a joke and a distraction for the hardest challenges. How hard was it to inhabit this character, and what would you say? I mean, how physically demanding was it playing this character?
Well, I had a great captain, running the ship. So when you have a beautiful script, very well woven, organic, written by one of the greatest directors India has ever seen, Goutam Ghose, then it becomes easier because he has sort of laid up the whole landscape for me to travel as an actor. And fortunately, I had a very intense experience living with a tribal community in mid-90s for several months, dressed like them and lived with them. Not only lived with them, but to live following the daily rhythms and all the chores and activities that the community had gone through. That was mid-90s, and that place was so remote that till then there was no concept of money or matchboxes or, of course, electricity. There's no question, and the entire village never ever seen any modern things like car or buses or anything. So I was lucky enough to be with them for almost 2.5 months, and so I had this access to their kind of amazingly wise community, that I probably would say that the chief of the village, or maybe even the youngest community member, would be much wiser about environment than the chief of the Greenpeace organization. How interdependent that human beings are on nature, that we must live together. So I had that experience, and to recall them and to bring it into, after living a very, very metro life, for so many years. But thankfully, as I said, that I had been also very lucky and fortunate enough to be trained by one of a few of the greatest teachers at the drama school in Delhi and in London at the Drama Studio London. And so all these together made my life easier, the task easier, and also pitted against the fantastic actors like Tilottama and Neeraj Kabi. I wish they were here, but and they I generally do not focus on myself when I act. I focus on the other actors and the environment around you, and let those things impact my inner being so that I can just be and behave myself as the role demands.
Thank you for that, Adil. Thank you for that, Adil. I think it was a wonderful ensemble that worked, the three of you, especially because the film was about pulling together. It was about cooperation. It was about working together. And the vibe between the three of you. I mean, Tilottama's performance is really extraordinary. It's mind-blowing. All of you, Neeraj. In fact, Neeraj is seen at the end at the hospital when he says goodbye to the two of you, which is so subtle, and yet you know exactly what he wants to convey. So really, I mean, every frame of the film is very alive in my imagination. I mean, from what Adil said about having lived with this community, Gautam, I want to ask you. We are, of course, screening this film to celebrate and mark 100 years of Satyajit Ray, and or Ray as the world knows him. Ray's work, of course, was the first um, to put the spotlight on the wisdom, the knowledge, the humanity of the indigenous peoples of India, right? And how metropolitan urban India just doesn't get it. They don't understand how much dignity there is in those people. And yet, one of the worst stories of modern India is that the people who are indigenous to the land are the ones who are the most dispossessed. And your two central characters are those dispossessed people who literally have to walk for a whole day, for several hours, just to be able to go and find daily wage work, which is 300, 350, 400 rupees, which is nothing. So, how much was Satyajit Ray present in your imagination in the way you thought and wrote the film?
Well, Ray inspired us with his work and his personality and the entire thing. And he was an extremely civilized person looking for true India right from his first film and till his last one, where he pointed out about the crisis of civilization again, and that who is civilized, we or the indigenous people? Because I have traveled in many areas in Bastard, in erstwhile Madhya Pradesh, now in Chhattisgarh, in Orissa, in Bihar, in Jharkhand, everywhere, and met so many tribes, so many indigenous group of people. They are tremendous. They know what is sustainable living, which we don't know. We have to learn what is sustainable living. Unfortunately, they were fine. I asked many times these people, are you in trouble? What kind of help you need? Well, we don't need. We are independent. We live with nature, close to nature. Let us live peacefully. What had happened that, since the 90s, when India entered into the market economy, the tribal indigenous economy broke completely. Because, their life started depending on the market price of, like anything, like a market price of the day. So it's a very difficult situation for the indigenous people to survive. And of course, there are many schemes of the government, but because what happens, those schemes, they don't reach them, middleman, somehow they manipulate. And, I think, still we can learn a lot of things. And Ray had shown in his last film and in many of his films about human values and try to learn human values from common people. That's a great inspiration. And Ray was very sensitive about these matters. And also, one of his last films, Gonna Show Through, The Enemy, where he had shown the very strange combination of a fundamentalist and the market economy. It's a very strange combination, happened in our country. and the rise of superstition and all kinds of things was shown in Ganesha through the enemy. It was adapted from Ibsen's Enemy of the People. So Ray was very conscious. I think, in those days, even Kurosawa was very conscious. Look at his last few films. Kurosawa had expressed his worry about his anxiety about human civilization. Because what's happening? What's happening? We are trying to kill each other. We are trying to destroy the environment. We try to destroy our earth. We are trying to destroy our earth, our mountain, our rivers, everything, only for greed. So that's the worry about this age of greed, which Ray was worried, and it passed or handed down from generation to generation. Even me and others, we are all worried.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is in fact the message of your film. I was thinking very much of Ray's Aguntuk when the anthropologist.
It's one song. Yeah.
Sorry.
Ray's swan song. Last
Yes,
film.
and it is such a critique of metropolitan, middle class, urban society, isn't it? And as Adil was saying, that disjunction in his own experience between having lived in a different context, very much as an anthropologist would. Adil, can I ask you, what made you live in this community for 2.5 months? Was it work? Was it, what took you there?
The entire credit goes to my teacher, Khalid Tayyib, who I went after I graduated from drama school, and I went to London, came back, and I realized, or I felt that I know nothing about acting. So I went up to him after seeing one of his performances called The Fool Song. And The Fool Song was based on, it's a depiction of different kinds of characters from across the country, from different classes and different economic backgrounds and intellectual backgrounds, from the tribal man to the politician to a cabaret dancer. So I felt that that's the kind of actor I'd like to be. So I went up to him and I said, I would like to learn from you. And he said, okay, do you have a motorbike and 100,000 rupees? And I said, I don't. That I give you 1 year, buy a motorbike and fill specified and 100,000 rupees so that you can look after yourself and I don't have to look after you and teach you at the same time. So I said, okay. So I took 1 year, I went to Assam and I worked in a commercial theater company. I earned 160,000 rupees and I bought my motorbike, and then he asked me to join him in Bastar, which Goutam was referring to. And we started the journey there. So I had no clue why he took me there. But after 2 years of being on our motorbikes and traveling and crisscrossing the country, the length and the breadth of the country, on the hindsight, I realized that he just introduced me to the India that I had no idea existed. And to be able to empathize with each and every possible human being, those who are from those who have different worldviews, not only toward the downtrodden, and also for the people, those who are from the metro. Because as an actor, I cannot possess any kind of bias towards anybody. I am supposed to be non-judgmental while I play a role. And I cannot be non-judgmental while I play a role unless I practice that in my life. So that's the reason he took me through. That's what I've never asked him why he took me through, but that's what I am now articulating as you ask me the question.
Thank you. Khalid is an old friend and he's also an anthropologist. So, and an extraordinary person. So I can see exactly why he suggested it. I want to ask you, I think a lot of people in the audience will also want to know, was this filmed in Jharkhand? Or
Yes.
was it in, yeah.
It was filmed in Jharkhand.
in Jharkhand. And can I ask, I mean, I couldn't help notice that even the landscape itself, partly because it's just these two characters against the elements, they really stand out and you notice the landscape very closely. The landscape becomes almost a character in this film. And yet, they're walking up and down hilly areas, through ravines, across waterfalls, but the camera moves very smoothly through the action. I mean, visually, it is an absolute treat. Was that technically very difficult to do to work the camera on such a difficult terrain? And did it add to your costs, Amitji? Gautam, how did you plan the?
I tell you, it was designed very carefully because I've done Recce twice, and because this Deccan, because Jharkhand is part of Deccan Plateau, and it's very interesting. Its undulation, its landscapes are very, very interesting. I thought our characters, Adil, Tilottama, and Neeraj, and the cart itself is a very interesting character because in between them the cart is moving, and we planned the cart and designed the cart in such a way because it's very interesting. It looks ancient, it looks very strange, it looks little surreal. So altogether, and camera movement was designed, and my son did the camera work, and he's a brilliant operator, and he could negotiate the terrain in rain and also the undulating track with a real camera, with the Alexa camera, which is not like a small DSLR. We shot the film with Alexa, but it was designed in such a way that we have static shot, moving shot, and some shots are just following like a documentary our characters, because because that's why it gives a very kind of a palpable, very real situation. It was not that, of course, it was designed very well, but while filming it, we thought that it should not look like a choreographed sort of mise-en-scène. So that's the interesting part of filmmaking, that you plan your time and space in such a way that it moves with your character, the situation, and the surrounding smoothly. That's, I think, also the power of cinema, because in cinema we manipulate time, we manipulate real time. We can tell a story of 2,000 years in 2 hours. We can also tell a story of 10 minutes in 2 hours. We can tell a story of 2 hours in 2 hours. The example is Kanchenjunga, the race Kanchenjunga. It's wonderful. It's only a real-time 2-hour story shown in 2 hours. So I still love cinema, and we still love large screen. Yeah. Of course, the small screens are also very good. OTT platforms are very helpful for the audience and also the filmmaker as well. But, large screen is large screen. During the pandemic, I was seeing some old pictures of plague days, during the silent era. Some cinemas, theaters were closed down, but there's a signboard. It's temporarily closed. Hopefully, we will open soon. So let's hope it will be opened.
Gautam pointed out quite a few locations from the aeroplane itself, and then they went for the hunt. You remember, Gautam?
Yes.
How mad you were to find that location, that Pathratu, no? I think Pathratu you located from there.
Well, the one ravine, where I spotted from while landing to Ranchi, and then it was very difficult, Then I tried to imagine the latitude and longitude, and east-west, measurement, and finally we could find that place. That's the madness of filmmaking.
Well, the madness has been entirely worthwhile because it's an unforgettable film, really. Can I just ask one final question, if you can keep it? Um, can you explain the opening shot, the opening scene before the credits come in, of the character of Tilotama? Uh, the suggestion is that she's raped by these two men. Can you tell us why you started with that?
Well, it opens with a top shot in the forest, and she carries the load of the wood, firewood, and then I wanted to show the ruthlessness of this semi-urban, terrible people. And I didn't want to show whether she was raped or not, or maybe, they ran away. That's different. Because I thought in cinema, just skip up to this for the audience to know the situation is bad and difficult for this woman to work. That's why she says to her daughter, be careful about the dogs. Yeah, they hunt for our girls. Be careful. So it's a kind of a prelude, in an orchestra. When you create a phrase for a prelude, it's a kind of a prelude. Then after the title, the first movement starts in the film. Then of course, like an orchestra, it's also very structurally musical. First movement, second movement, third, and recapitulation at the end.
Thank you. I mean, you'll be happy to know that at least this viewer saw it exactly like that. It was an overture. In fact, the dialogue in that opening vignette, the only thing you hear is, when translated into English, it says, don't fight it. If you don't fight, it won't hurt, or something like that, right?
Yes.
Which seemed to me the message that we almost send out to all our dispossessed indigenous communities of India. That fall in line, do the mining work, do the quarry work, you will get paid. Don't try and fight it. Don't protest. Don't ask questions. Just suffer it. That's the sort of politics that we live in. And that's what that opening scene said to me, at least. But it'll be, but that
right.
of trees was incredible as the opening shot. That was very, very powerful. And you immediately, of course, locate these characters as people of the forest, people who are comfortable, as you've all been saying, in their relationship to the natural world. And that definitely came through. So I wanted to say a warm congratulations to all of you for having believed in the film, for having done the incredible hard work of filming, of inhabiting the character, of bringing these remarkable characters to life, and most of all to Goutam Ghose for again once more giving us such an extraordinary film that anyone who sees it is not going to forget it in a hurry. And also we really hope that most of the people who watch this film will do so on a big screen. And it's a wonderful reopening of the British Film Institute that we are able to do this here with this remarkable film. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.